Morning, sir. I was just off to do an errand. Say, you don't happen to know anything about motor cars, do you?
Yes, I do. Hastings, what is this you make me say? I know nothing of motor cars.
I do, Poirot. Let's see what he's on about.
What would you like to know?
Major Barry's car needs its points cleaned. He wants it as soon as possible, but I have to test the motor on the C-Tractor. It's been a bit dodgy lately. I wouldn't want to strand anyone on the island. I'd be in your debt if you could help me out.
The young scoundrel asks such a thing of the world's greatest detective?
Hang on, Poirot. It wouldn't hurt to have a bright lad like Jenks on our side.
I see no points on the car of Major Barry. And the motor cars, they are filthy.
Nonsense. You'd think you'd never heard of soap. I've never cleaned points myself, but all we need are some instructions. The current issue of Motor Enthusiast magazine has an exceptionally clear article on the subject.
Ouch! Something pricked me.
It's a sliver of metal. Must be magnetic. Can't say I see much point in hanging on to a magnetic sliver of metal, but you never know.
As you say, Hastings, you'll never know. Well, that is not going to help. That is not... No, it is not. It appears to be stuck that way. It appears to be stuck that way. This is neither the time nor the place. I confess that your logic, it is... Your instincts are well honed, mon ami. I do not think that... Does nothing strike you as odd about what you're doing? You presume that this would be the choice of Poirot? I think not. Does nothing... You presume... No, it is not possible. The puzzle, it is one piece closer to completion. I confess... No, it is... It appears to be stuck that way. It appears... Without error, mon ami.
Well done, old man.
There is not enough soap in all of Devon to restore my hands.
Morning, sir. Got the tractor motor purring like a kitten. Any luck with Major Barry's automobile?
Why, yes. Against all expectation, I have cleaned the tips with much success.
Beg your pardon?
Points, old man.
And the points as well.
Smashing. Much obliged, sir. Like a ride to the island?
Yes, please.
Let's be off then. I expect you've heard about our ghost, the smuggler Tom Cutter. He used to bring in his goods to the cove on Seadrift Island they now call Cutter's Cove. And he was regular at the pub on the island. That's where he met his end, they say, hung by agents of the Crown. There'll be those who say he was shot or drowned. But my old gaffer knew the story, and he swore he strung old Tom up from the hotel side.
Beach is certainly empty this morning.
I believe Captain Marshall will be swimming shortly.
Everyone else off on excursions, I expect. Major Barry wanted to go into Knightsbridge if his car was fixed.
The Major? He has business in Kingsbridge?
Oh, he was complaining of the lack of privacy when using the phone in Leathercombe Bay post office. I can't imagine what he has to be so secretive about. Can you, Oakley?
No, darling.
You do not take the excursion?
I was saying to Mr. Gardner only this morning, we simply must make an excursion to Dartmoor. It's quite near and the associations are all so romantic, aren't they, Oakley?
Yes, darling. I've always wanted to visit the Dartmoor prison.
You do not knit at the ledges this morning?
No, Miss Darnley was there before us and didn't seem to be in the mood for chatting. So we came here. Didn't want to disturb her, did we, Oakley?
No, darling.
The motor car, it is repaired.
Oh? Isn't that splendid, Oakley?
Yes, darling.
Oakley, I don't believe I've got that second shade of purple wool. It's in the second drawer of the bureau in our bedroom, or it might be the third.
Yes, darling.
Good morning, Mr. Redfern.
I don't see anything good about it.
goodness, he's in a mood.
I confess that your logic, it escapes me. The good detective knows, even... What have we here, Hastings? Mademoiselle Brewster, you have had a pleasant morning?
Good morning, Mr. Poirot. Well, I was, until somebody chucked something at me from the balcony up there.
Mademoiselle, I have looked into Millie's murder.
And?
I believe I have found the one responsible for her death.
Who was it?
Colonel Weston is having his men follow up on certain facts I placed before him. While I cannot tell you with absolute certainty, nevertheless, the indications are very strong that the one they will question is our man. Every instinct tells me he is the man, and I promise you, he will be brought to justice.
Mr. Poirot, I can't tell you how much this means to me.
She was a good friend to you, young Millie.
Yes, she was. She was an innocent. Mr. Poirot, I can't bear it when the innocent suffer.
You have the good heart, mademoiselle. I am happy I was able to assist you. Something was thrown at you?
I was having my usual morning swim at about 10:30, when all of a sudden, whoosh, something hit the water very near my head.
You do not know what it was, the projectile?
No, I would have swum down for it. But the water's pretty deep here, and my ears won't take the pressure. If you'll excuse me, it's time for my row. The exercise will do me good.
There is no need to disturb Mademoiselle Darnley. Let her enjoy her book. Let her enjoy the sunshine, Hastings. Madame Redfern.
Oh, Monsieur Poirot, I have the sketch you asked me for.
Merci, madame.
North 20, east 19, then north 15. Let's see where we end up, shall we?
1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12, 13, 18, 19, 20. Eh bien. Now east. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12. Hastings. 3 more steps will put me in the center of the... What did you call it?
The ad service court. Poirot, something is buried there. That's why the ground keeps settling. Dig! Dig!
Against my better judgment?
A treasure chest! Oh, that's...
Yes, Hastings, we've uncovered the spot where the monks, they dumped their old brandy casks. Congratulations.
I was so sure.
I suggest another visit to Monsieur Bagby, if you insist on pursuing this.
Good idea, old fellow. First you'd better finish filling in the hole and raking the tennis court.
Let us...
Hello? Need the sea tractor, do you?
Yes, please?
On me way. There's not so much to do in Leathercombe Bay now that the evacuation's been done. Most places are closed up except the chemists. Mrs. Hughes has to stay because she's the post office too. And lending library if it comes to that. But it's the post that must be seen too. Now that the Smuggler's End is closed, the only pub is the Monk's Hood. Mr. Bagby is trying to stay open long as he can. Once the hotel is closed, there won't be much trade for him.
A regulation dartboard.
Fancy a short game, sir? 3 throws each?
I will try my luck.
Oh, I pegged you for a sporting gentleman the moment you first walked in here. We each start with 301 points. I don't have time for a complete game, I'm afraid. Whoever hits the highest score subtracts that from 301. We'll declare him the winner. Go on, you go first.
Darts may not be your game, old fellow.
Did you not say the key to finding the treasure was to start on the island summit? Hastings, we are not here for the treasure hunt.
Well, that's what most believe, eh? What of it?
The directions I discovered led to where the tennis court is now.
Don't tell me you dug up Mrs. Castle's tennis court.
Yes, very amusing. Have you any idea where we could have gone wrong?
Well, let me see. Oh, rot.
Oh, rot, why do you say this?
Well, if you started at the current high point on the island, you would easily go astray.
The current high point?
Yes, you misunderstood me.
I? Poirot? He does not misunderstand.
But you have. Let me explain. That hill is the highest point on the island now. But of course it wasn't back in Tom Cutter's day. That was long before the hotel, remember? They levelled the land around there when they built it. The highest point used to be... let me see. You know that grassy path out from the main entrance a ways? The one that leads to the bathing beach? Well, that used to be much higher. That's where old Tom used to sit and watch. You really did dig up the tennis court?
Your dog? He has not returned?
No, and I'm a bit put out with you and Major Barry. Did you stick that mad cat of Mrs. Hughes on him?
Well, it was not the outcome I intended, I assure you.
Yes, well, I'd ask you to leave well enough alone in future, Mr. Poirot. I told you Baskerville needed no training.
Good day to you, Monsieur Bagby.
Yeah, if you'd like a game of darts, just ask.
Could you send a sketch to Scotland Yard for identification?
Be glad to. I've seen the fellow about. You think he's up to no good?
I do.
I'll try to have an answer for you this afternoon.
Merci. Good day, monsieur.
Like a ride to the island?
Yes, please.
Let's be off then. If you're looking for entertainment during your stay, there's not much at Leathercombe Bay or at the hotel these days. My Gladys and I usually go into Kingsbridge to the moving pictures, and there's some dancing at the hotel there still. Although, when I asked Gladys for this weekend, she refused and gave no reason, no matter how much I asked. She just said I should know. I don't understand women. I truly don't.
north 20, east 19, then north 15. Let's see where we end up, shall we?
1, 2, 3, 4. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Hastings, here too is the depression in the ground, remember?
Dig, Poirot, dig!
Luckily for you, Poirot is an expert gardener. You have seen my vegetable marrows.
There! You've hit something! Tom Cutter's treasure is
3 gold dots. Congratulations.
At least they're gold. Oh, better fill in the hole, Poirot. Wouldn't do for anyone to injure themselves.
As you yourself would say, well played, Hastings. You have correctly deduced that Tom Cutter's Ton 80 was the key to unlocking their secret door.
Thanks, old man.
Voila! The ghost of Tom Cutter becomes someone wearing a coat covered with luminescent paint. Mais non, my friend Hastings. I could blunder about in these tunnels for hours while who knows what crimes are committed in my absence. I need some means to ensure I am traveling in the proper direction. The door is locked, but I can hear their voices from within. Perhaps we should listen a bit closer, Hastings.
I say, Poirot, he seems to be typing up quite a storm.
Yes, please?
On me way. I've been looking after the hotel garage and driving the C-Tractor for almost 5 years now. Just look at that Major Barry's motor now. A 1938 Triumph Dolomite. It's a beautiful piece of British style in manufacturing. I can't think but what the war effort will take all the great designers to work on tanks and whatnot.
Does nothing strike you as odd about what you're doing?
Sorry, no word from Scotland Yard on that sketch you gave me.
Like a ride to the...
Yes, please.
Let's be off then. I've been looking after the hotel garage and driving the C-Tractor for almost 5 years now. Just look at that Major Barry.
Hello. Somebody's having a bath. Leaving it rather late in the morning, weren't they?
You have done well, Hastings. Perhaps a misstep or two here or there, but overall I give you high marks indeed.
Thanks, Poirot. Very decent of you.
But now, your mettle will be tested. Recall where each suspect was last seen. I have marked their positions on the map here. As you probe their alibis, we will update the map so that perhaps you can see who had the most opportunity to kill Madame Musher. And do not neglect the inhabitants of Leathercombe Bay. They may also have information of importance.
I'll be thorough, old man. You can count on me.
Excellent! And of course, if you find yourself unable to progress, we will consult the magic of the Finger of Suspicion.
Magic my eye. But at any rate, it's time now for a fifth clue to its secret.
The clue is magnet.
Magnet. At last, a clue that suggests something useful.
I am glad the clue it pleases you. I shall place it next to the Finger of Suspicion. Use it as you will. When you are ready, my friend, we will return to Seadrift Island. It is now late morning. The time it is precisely 11:40 when the rowboat with Patrick Redfern at the oars and Emily Brewster in the bow rounds the headland into Cutter's Cove.
Hello? Who's that?
It looks like Mrs. Marshall.
So it does.
We don't want to land here, do we?
Oh, plenty of time.
That's odd. Why is Mrs. Marshall lying in the shade?
Hello, Elena?
Mademoiselle Brewster senses something. The body, the way it lies. There is something unnatural in the angle of the outspread arms.
Elena?
Monsieur Redfern too, he hesitates, and then...
No. Elena! No!
Is she...
She's dead! Oh, God. She's been strangled! Elena!
I was in my room, as yet unaware of the tragedy.
Oh, sir. Sir, it's terrible.
Monsieur Poirot, I'm sorry, my nerves.
Madame, has something happened?
Don't you know? The police have been here for an hour at least.
The police?
In Cutter's Cove. It's Mrs. Marshall. She's been murdered. Please, please excuse me.
Please, not now, Monsieur Poirot. My wife is too distraught to speak.
Mr. Poirot, there you are.
Mademoiselle, what has occurred?
It's Mrs. Marshall. Mr. Redfern and I found her in Cutter's Cove. She's been strangled.
Mademoiselle, may I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Can you row me to Cutter's Cove?
Mr. Poirot, after your efforts to find Millie's killer, I'll row you any time you like. You need only ask me. Climb in.
Oh, Poirot! At last. Listen, you know how strapped I am right now with the evacuation, the Home Guard, and now fifth columnists? If you could leave the investigation, I would be in your debt.
I will help in any way I can, my friend.
Thank you. You just missed Dr. Neasden, the coroner. My men have done a cursory search of the cove. We'll be back shortly to collect the remains and with equipment to do a better job.
Who called you?
George Strum, bathing beach attendant, showed up on my doorstep. Miss Brewster sent him. As luck would have it, Neasden was with me, so we came right over.
What could Dr. Neasden tell you about the time of death?
He put the time of the murder at somewhere between 11:15 and 12:20, just before Redfern and Miss Brewster showed up.
The cause of death was strangulation?
Oh yes, no doubt about that. The handprints are very clear on the neck. Neasden may be able to tell us more after the autopsy, but it's pretty clear a very strong pair of hands did that to her. That's all I have for now. Poirot, I hate to drop this thing in your lap like this.
Do not concern yourself, my friend.
Look around all you like. Make sure everyone knows you speak with my authority. I'll do a background check on everyone on the island. I should have a report for you at the police station later this afternoon.
Thank you, Colonel.
You aren't going to look at her face, are you?
The investigator of murder cannot be squeamish, Hastings.
Still, if you assure me of the facts, there isn't any real need, is there?
As you wish. I state categorically that Mrs. Marshall was strangled to death by a very powerful pair of hands. Elena's coffee flask. This is certainly significant.
Hello, something was dumped here. What does it smell like, Poirot?
Coffee.
What? Oh, Poirot.
May I put to you some questions, Monsieur Redfern? How did you and Mademoiselle Brewster come to be rowing together?
I asked Miss Brewster if I could join her.
Why did you do that? Monsieur Redfern, there is no longer the luxury of playing the little games. Now is the time for truth.
Elena and I were accustomed to swimming together each morning. When I didn't see her on the beach, I went looking for her. She wasn't up at the hotel. I saw Miss Brewster getting the rowboat ready. That's when I got the idea that if we rowed around the island, I might find her, Elena. I offered to row first. We set off.
What time did you arrive here?
Sometime before 12. I don't know exactly.
Tell me what you thought when you saw Mrs. Marshall.
Well, I was put out, if you must know. I couldn't understand why she let me go. I couldn't understand it at all. I rowed for the beach. I wanted to find out what she was doing.
What happened after their boat beached?
I called out to her, but she didn't answer. She just lay there. I went over to her. There was something strange. She was so still. I knelt beside her, touched her hand, then her arm. She didn't react at all. Then I lifted her hand. My God, her face, Poirot. It was dark, mottled. Those marks, handprints on her neck.
Steady.
I'm sorry. She was so beautiful. How could anyone spoil that?
Who went for help?
Miss Brewster. I had this idea. I wanted to protect Elena. It's stupid, I know. She was beyond anyone's protection. I sat near her, then couldn't take that anymore, and came over here and waited until the police arrived.
Is there anything you saw or thought that might help us?
I'm sorry. Let me think.
Take your time.
There was one thing. I heard a noise while I was still over near Elena.
What was it?
A clatter on the rocks near the ladder. Something falling. Not a rock, though. Something light.
I may have more questions for you later.
Torn piece of green fabric. The same color as Arlena Marshall's hat. A smashed bottle with a bit of fluid left in it.
And the fluid has the distinctive odor of an expensive perfume?
That mud looks like it was placed there deliberately. And there's something shiny underneath. That mud looks like... I say, a six-sided metal receptacle hidden by the mud. The mud must have been applied fairly recently, and the metal looks shiny, almost new. And that shape, it reminds me of something. It's like the receptacle for a winch handle you find on the masts of some sailboats to winch the sail up and down. I say, a six-sided metal receptacle hidden, and that
This is certainly significant.
I'll just snip a piece of the fabric from the hat.
I would like to put to you the questions, if I may.
Of course.
How did you and Monsieur Redfern come to be rowing together?
After you saw me at Rocky Bar, I changed and was about to set out on my morning row when Mr. Redfern asked if he could join me.
What time did you arrive here?
We arrived on the beach at 11:45. We must have come in sight of the cove 5 minutes before that.
Tell me what you thought when you saw Mrs. Marshall.
Nothing at first. I assumed she was sunning herself.
And then?
Well, the first thing I noticed was she was lying as if she was sunbathing. but she was in the shade of the cliffs. Then, when Mr. Redfern called out, and she didn't answer, that felt odd too. Once we were out of the boat, I could tell there was something unnatural in the way she was lying. Her arms.
What time was this?
He wanted to row right round the island, so I checked my watch. It was not quite 11:30.
Did Monsieur Redfern often accompany you?
No, this was the first time. If you ask me, he was looking for Mrs. Marshall. He volunteered to take the oars first.
What happened after the boat beached?
Mr. Redfern and I approached Mrs. Marshall. I could see he thought the situation wasn't right as well. He knelt beside her, touched her hand, then her arm, then he started to lift her hat. He saw her face and cried out.
Who went for help?
I did. We both knew someone had to. I'm not the kind of woman who would ever admit to feeling fear, but I was secretly thankful when Mr. Redfern offered to stay with the body.
I understand perfectly, mademoiselle. You must have reproached yourself. Is there anything you saw or thought that might help us?
No, I don't believe so. Yes, there is something. She was strangled, just like Millie and the other woman, Alice Corrigan. 3 women strangled in South Devon within a few months of one another. Can that be just coincidence?
Anything is possible, mademoiselle. But I will agree that coincidence in this case seems highly unlikely. I may have more questions for you later.
Of course.
Can you row me back to the bathing beach?
Of course. Would you like to leave now?
Yes, thank you. May I have a word with you?
Colonel Weston told us to cooperate with you, Mr. Poirot, and of course we will, in any way we can. But this has been a very bad shock to me, and Mr. Gardner is always very, very careful of my health. Isn't that so, Oakley?
Yes, darling. Mrs. Gardner is very sensitive.
I appreciate you speaking with me. You spent the morning here, overlooking the beach?
Yes, we did. And not the slightest idea in our minds of what was happening just around the corner in that little cove.
And you were here the entire time?
Yes, both of us. From nearly 10:30, 10:25, until Oakley went to play tennis at 12. Isn't that right, Oakley?
Well, not exactly. I did run off to fetch your purple wool, if you'll remember. That was around 11 by the hotel clock. It took quite a few minutes to find it, I'm afraid. 15 minutes, possibly 20.
No more than 10 minutes, surely. I barely missed you.
Methinks she protests too much, Poirot. What is she frightened of?
It is a question we must learn the answer to, my friend. Did you see Madame Marshall at all today?
We? But that is to say, no. I said to Oakley, why, wherever can she have got to this morning? First her husband comes looking for her, and then that good-looking young man, Mr. Redfern. I always wondered, why must he go running after that woman when he has that nice, pretty wife, all of his own, didn't I, Oakley?
Yes, darling.
She can babble all she likes, but I heard that hesitation, Poirot.
Did you notice anything that might have a bearing upon the case?
Why, no, I don't think so. Just that she was always around with young Redfern. Anyone can tell you that.
Did her husband mind, do you think?
Captain Marshall is a very reserved man.
That is all the questions I have for the moment.
We're devastated. We know nothing that could help. Aren't we, Oakley?
Yes, darling.